And I tell my team all the time, are you listening? Are you really listening to what the customer said?
Today on the show, we are joined by Tim Sloane, an accomplished executive with extensive experience building and leading and retaining talented teams. If you've ever wondered what's next, this episode is for you. This is The Career Cue, the podcast focused on helping you navigate the signals in your career to keep you growing and moving forward in business and in life. Here's today's host, Danna Redmond.
So, Tim, I'm so excited to have you here in the studio with us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about this topic today with you. Tell us a little bit about your career journey.
It's a fun journey for me. I think the most critical point in my journey was right when I graduated from college. I had the intention of either going to law school or becoming a lobbyist. So I was really studying a lot about politics and political systems, and met a woman who worked in waste reduction and recycling who had a consulting firm. And she convinced me to say, I think that's a better route. You'll have more impact on the world if you come into this world. And so I did my internship out of college with her, and that's how I got into government, and decided that I worked for King County in waste reduction and recycling.
Wow.
I became a master recycler, and decided at that point that I wanted to also do graduate school in public administration because I was really just tuned in to, how can you do behavior change and make change in the world by working through a government agency. So I did graduate school and got my master's in public administration and switched over to working for Seattle, King County Public Health, and was learning the art of behavior change through advertising. So how do you change behavior through the word and print, newsletters, radio, TV? The internet didn't exist at that time. But really became somewhat of an expert in that aspect. And so when the internet did evolve back in the late 90s is when my career took a really big change. A company called Avenue A at that time was recruiting like crazy in Seattle, and I got into digital advertising and brought kind of all those skills and resources into that world. And so I had the government world for about 6 years, and then I went into the public sector, which then created this trajectory around understanding customers, behavior change, making an impact on the business side and then also on the personal side. So that took me on a journey through Avenue A, Expedia, Microsoft, my own business, startups, and now at Amazon.
Wonderful. Well, is there a common theme for you that sort of runs through your career journey?
Yeah, there's always been an analytics component. So how do you use data to inform decisions? So in the first job that I had, I learned the art of data collection and analytics at the transfer station, where we used to take garbage cans and from people's homes with permission, and we used to take them to the transfer station and dump them out and actually record how much recyclables were in their waste stream.
Yeah.
And then we would send newsletters or do something in that neighborhood and see what kind of change happened. And so that was a fun.
And that is like really hands-on analytics. Hands-on. That is not crunchy numbers analytics. That's going.
It was very, very hands-on. So there's an analytics component. So using that data, but also from the customer perspective, it was always like really thinking about the customer, which is always, since my first job at 15, it's always been about that. And so combining that real life aspect of what people do in terms of their behavior and then also using the data behind it to make change has been a really common theme for me.
Interesting. I love that you've sort of been able to carry that through so much. So, what advice do you have for people if they are trying to determine that what next? I mean, when I hear your story of thought you wanted to go into government, and so you did that, and then that led to, sort of the advertising world, which led to then to the online media and online advertising world. How did you determine what's next for you, or what advice you have for people to determining what's next for them?
That's great. I love that question. I've always been a dreamer. I don't know where that came from. I learned on my own to explore all the opportunities, in front of me. So even when I was in college, I was wanting to become an accountant. I wanted to become a lobbyist. I thought about law school. There were just all these options. And so I was exploring all of them simultaneously. And I've been doing that in my career all along. So if you look at my LinkedIn profile, some people say, wow, you jumped around a lot. But if you look at it deeply to your previous question, you'll see there's a theme. And so I've always wanted to take advantage of what was next for me. I don't know anything about advertising. Let me go take my skills and abilities and go learn that business. Or I've never worked in, the customer operations world. I'm going to go over to Expedia and learn that. And so I've always wanted that sense of journey and dreaming. And I really encourage people to always think about that. For me, there's always been that sense of having the pillars that are really important to me. I think that you can take a whole bunch of different jobs that are offered to you, but I don't know if you've taken jobs before. I know I have. I've made a few decisions in my life where I'm like, this isn't really what I wanted to do. I wasn't honest with myself. The title sounded great, the company sounded great, but it wasn't really core to who I am. And so I learned through working with a coach about over time about just developing the three pillars that are really important to you. So for me, the three pillars that came up as I've been exploring my career and making decisions was it has to be customer focused. And what that means for me is that I have to be making an impact on who the customer is for that business. And I have to be really close to it. The operations component. So over the time, that's the other theme is that I love operations. I love learning how to scale a business through data. I love learning how to scale a business through that customer focus and really figuring out all the nuances of people, process, or technology. And then the third component of the pillar for me is it has to be leadership. There's a component that I'm just really passionate about. The leadership is where I kind of play and geek out. How do you motivate employees? How do you give them clear direction? How do I, as a leader, give my employees the ability and experiences that I had? So how do I not answer questions for them? How do I ask them the right questions to just ignite something in them? And I continue to learn too, while I'm doing that.
Right.
So just really having a clear idea of what is important to you and leaving the money or the title or the location or the business name aside and then making those decisions later.
That's interesting with the way you mentioned sort of these three pillars. And sounds like they're separate from how much money is it going to make? Like some of these things are, you have to make a certain dollar amount just to keep your life going. And so know that. But then these are separate. They feel a bit more something that you can take from job to job. And you can find those possibly in, different companies and different industries the way you have.
Yes.
How did you go about kind of getting at those or figuring out what your pillars were? What did that process look like?
Over time, I was realizing that as I was growing my career, there were all these skills and experiences that I had. It was really as I got more business maturity, as I like to call it.
All right, AKA.
And when I hit that part of my career where people were reaching out to me to say, hey, I would love for you to come help. And there's that shift in your career where all of a sudden it's like, I don't have to be the one trying to convince people to hire me. People are actually coming to me. When they would ask me what I wanted to do, I started realizing that I could go in any direction, and I wasn't giving them the clarity that they needed to know if I was the right person to come to them. And so I spent some time doing my own personal journey work, and I was getting crisper and crisper. But at one juncture, I actually did hire a coach because sometimes we have to get out of our own way.
Right.
And so the coach Chandra that I was working with really helped me get to this level of crispness in terms of the articulation of those pillars, because those are the three core ones to me, but I have like 25 that I can do.
Hold on. Yes, it takes more than just 3 to hold up the Tim house, maybe.
Exactly. And so, when we're all, when I'm recruiting people, or when I'm working with people and wanting to do something with them, we're all looking for that person that can help us achieve our goals. And if you as the person who's wanting that role or that job, if you can actually articulate it in that way, it just really helps people to go, that's the person I want to have come on this journey with me.
Right. As you've been out and I know you get asked for career advice on a regular basis, and you've seen lots of people, come up through their own careers. How do you think being clear or not clear of those for other people, or even for you earlier on in your career, had an impact? Did it slow you down to not have it, or were you even not as experienced enough to know those were your pillars?
Yeah, I didn't have the clarity that I needed, the pillars. In every role I've had, I've always wanted to take on that next thing. So I've always been having that kind of that journey, that dream. And so I've always took on new projects or roles at different companies. So I was never experiencing being held back in any way. But it was just, I think I started learning it as I became more of a manager and doing a lot of recruiting. I would meet with someone really great and I would say, hey, what do you want to do, with your life? And they couldn't answer it. Or even, even now with recruiting for a current role, I mean, I'm interviewing people for really senior leader roles, and they're not able to have that crispness. And it's like, you just really need to practice. And so I personally only I haven't found that it held me back, but I know that as a person who's wanting to hear that articulation, I can see that I'm trying to make the right decision on people that I would want to bring into my organization based off of like that clear articulation that I can have.
Yeah. Somebody that can clearly sort of articulate. And I love thinking of those as these pillars, and they're not about a job title or they're not about a specific role per se, but they're components that you can find in many different roles.
Exactly. And that's the part that I feel that when people are focused on the title or the pay, those are all crucial. There's Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right.
You have to honor some of that. But when they're putting that first, it's like, oh, it just kills me. I'm like, oh, you're limiting yourself so much by not having the conversation first. My favorite saying is, don't make a decision until you have one to make. And so when people are talking to me about roles in the current role that I'm in, they're asking me questions about parking or, they're important at one level, but like what's more important is the role right for you? So if you had to make a trade-off on those things that are important, then you're making the right trade-off. And so I always encourage people that I'm talking to like, don't make a decision until you have one, but continue exploring because you don't know that person that you're talking to about a current role that might not be the right role for you, but they might know someone who has a role or is in the area where you want to work, or there's a solution for, some of those other key attributes that you're looking at.
Right. That is so key. Don't make a decision until you have a decision to make. So don't cut yourself off from opportunities, right? And you've mentioned a couple of times how you have sort of this what's next attitude, this dreamer attitude. When you were thinking about the what's next or the dream, how close to your current situation or role does it have to be for you to feel like it's a next step? I imagine there's some grandiose big steps in the future, but like for a next step, where would you think of, how do you manage that for yourself and thinking about, does it have to be 50% of what you currently do or no? Or how much risk, I guess, maybe are you willing to take in that area?
I think that the risk, it's funny that you say that risk, it's the dream. I don't know where I got this, but I've always been setting up goals for myself over time. Even in, college, I want to graduate at this time. I wanted to have my graduate degree by the time I was 30. And so I would set up these steps that would get me to make sure that I would, being able to graduate. I also had goals about, when I was 30, I wanted to experience this. When I was 40, I wanted to experience that. 50. I think the dream that I had when I was 50 is I never wanted to look back and regret not taking a step to do something. And so that feels great. Now it is more about what are with those pillars moving forward. And as I get more business maturity, what do I really want to go for now that I realize I don't have to necessarily prove myself in terms of career, but I can actually take a next step. And so your question's a really good one. I think I think because I have a solid foundation that I could actually probably, push myself to bump up that risk factor to, say 60% and say, where I currently work, that's the beauty of working at Amazon is because there's so many different businesses, there's so many different things that you can do, and they really challenge you to do that. So I think because I have that solid foundation of who I am and what's important to me, and I'm taking care of those basic needs that are important, now I think that at this point in my career, it's actually pretty exciting to say, wow, there is a next step, even when you get to my point.
Right.
in career.
Yeah. You're like, yep, I can do that. And, the other piece of that, Tim, is what I hear from you is you also have a level of confidence about yourself. I think, having defined those pillars, right? You know what you're good at and you know what you enjoy. And so, knowing that probably helps you say, yep, I can take on something where maybe I haven't done before or a business area I haven't been in, but have some confidence going in there.
Yes.
That you'll just figure it out.
Yes. There is a sense of accomplishment or confidence from the accomplishments. The thing that's really interesting to me now is that you really have to have that self-awareness of the things that are actually opportunities for you. And sometimes those are not something that you really want to admit. And so if you start sharing those with your boss and your colleagues, look for opportunities to overcome those. That's what really helps with the confidence piece. And so I would encourage everybody, like I do, it's like always explore that and just be really honest with yourself, but don't judge. It's like some of the gurus over time. There's like one is tell your truth without blame or judgment. And if you could just get to your truth about what your opportunities are and don't say, oh, I should, or shouldn't do that, that's what releases the opportunities for you to move forward.
Yeah, I love that. Just owning that without that blame or judgment. Like, yep, this is an opportunity area for me. I wish I was better. I should really be doing this other thing. Yep, this is where I am today. I want to move forward from that, and get better at that, but not a whole lot of guilt.
Exactly.
Probably frees you.
I recently had an employee who was giving me some feedback on a business trip that we had, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. And the intent was so clear to say, hey, you've told me this opportunity and it's showing up here. Here's my advice. And it was really fun for me to actually smile and go, I am going to take this opportunity and use the advice she gave me. Mm-hmm. And I did that. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, my life just changed.
Yeah.
And the willingness to actually hear people when they're giving you feedback and not block it, because sometimes it's hard to give feedback and you want to say, oh, I don't want to hear that. But if you actually listen to it from the true intent, it can actually make a big difference in your life. And so.
Right. And I love that listening to it from its true intent. I mean, I'm sure it took a lot for somebody, if they report to you or up through you, in your management chain to give you, hey, I know you've been working on this here. Let me show you how it's showing up. Like that takes some guts and courage from that person. And then to take that, like that was with the best intentions to share that with you. And so sometimes it is initially a little hard to hear. You're like, oh, and you want to get defensive, but then you're like, no, let me listen to that and see what I can take away and see what needs to be taken away. Wonderful. Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about your journey and sort of how you've been successful at moving from large companies to startups and back again.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to check out the show notes at thecareerq.com, where you can also subscribe to the podcast and sign up for our newsletter.
Welcome back. We're talking with Tim Sloane today. And before the break, we had talked a lot about, take what's next for you and how somebody can explore that. Now I want to talk a little bit about how have you been successful in moving from the various startups to big companies to startups and back again. Like I've seen your career journey take you through, different industries and different areas. And so I'd love to get a little bit more from you, like, what advice you have for people that are interested in making one of those moves?
I think early in my career, I was always striving to do the next bigger company. And so I had, again, like we were talking about with the pillars or the things that are important, it was the, going from a successful startup into the world of Expedia, going to the world of Microsoft. And over those years and getting a certain level of expertise, when there was an opportunity for me to move to a startup, that was starting from scratch, literally 5 people in a room. That was probably, to your earlier question about risk, that was probably one of the bigger, riskier moves that I had made. And what made that successful was as I was doing my career, I was always trying to set myself up to be able to not be hindered by things that would hold back. So I know we're not talking about personal finance or anything in this one, but really being, as my career became more successful, I also just, kept my lifestyle at a stage that wasn't growing with the abundance that I had in my career. So when I had a chance to go to a startup, it's one thing I would tell people. It's like you go to a startup and you make what I made in the first job out of college or whatever. And so I love that opportunity to be able to do that. It was one of those things where I'm like, how can I take my skills and experiences and build something from scratch? How do you build a team, from 5 to 25 to 40 people? What made it successful in terms of that transition was I used everything that I had learned that's in my, leadership management, toolkit, if you will, because the same things show up. Most people will say, oh, I want to be at a startup because it's so much easier and less bureaucratic. And it's like, no, it's not necessarily true. They're humans.
Yeah.
There's people who, want to be recognized. Right. There's, organizational things that you have to look at. And so I always tried to bring all those skills, talents, and resources I had forward, but I needed to apply them into the current situation. And so the employee base is different. The customer base is different. And then you also have to renew your skills in Excel or QuickBooks or things that you didn't have to do for a while. And so the goal was always, how am I going to expand my skills and abilities even further? And so I think because I went into it knowing when I transitioned from going from a big company like Microsoft into a startup, I think the things that made it successful is I knew that it was going to be a journey. I knew that it was going to be challenging in a different way. And that was exciting too, because, things become, easier after a while when you get used to them. And so over time, then I got known to be in the kind of the startup world, to be somewhat of an operations expert. People could see my leadership and how I could help motivate careers. And so I did do a few startups, over the years. And after doing that for 5 years or so in the startup world, I really loved it. But then I had to say, what do I want to do when I grow up? And so there were certain things that were really, important to me as I went into the next journey. And it was, for me, it was like what made it successful to say, now that I learned some really core skills in a small environment, now I want to take those, so the skills from the large environment, I applied them to the small startup environment, created new skills, and now I wanted to take it back into a larger world. And so bringing that forward now into the current role that I have, what's making it successful is I'm tapping into everything that I've learned over the years and constantly challenging myself to do it different, to do it faster, to do it better, learning from mistakes. Another model I have is, when you make a mistake, for personally, or you learn a lesson, I take that lesson and I put it into my backpack. So when something shows up that looks really similar to that, I can reach into my backpack and say,
oh yeah,
I've been here before. I know I can either do it the same way or I can do it differently. And so the art of practice, I think, has made me successful in the career that I learned from one of my bosses over time, is that everything takes practice. So if you look at that and say, I'm going to practice something new, I'm in a new environment, and say, especially if you want to do something different. So as we become experts in our career, like we know how to do certain things, we don't need to practice that anymore. So we should always be challenging ourselves to practice something new, practice something different. And I think that's what's made me successful over time, is to say, what am I going to do that I'm just going to keep doing this because I know how to do it. I'm going to practice over here. And over here, I'm going to challenge myself on what are the really big opportunities.
Right. I love that. So there's this core, yep, I'm an expert, I can do this. And here's some stuff that I'm still practicing on, right? And probably being okay with yourself and knowledge that, yep, I'm going to have to do that repetitively a few times to be able to practice that. Just like if you were an athlete or something, shooting hoops or hitting the ball, right? That takes a lot of practice. And then some big challenge things that, wow, I've never even been there before.
Exactly. The one I'm practicing right now, which is actually kind of fun, is I'm not a micromanager at all. but I love solving problems. And so as I'm building the leaders on my team and helping them see what success looks like in terms of the what's been successful for me, when there's a problem, I want to get in there and help solve it. And so I have to practice kind of pulling away.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to have, contracts with people to say, I would love to help solve this. Invite me in if you need my advice, because I want to play.
Yeah.
And so, I've learned, even at the start, there was a lot of times when, some of the first job out of college folks that were working for me would be like, did you want me to do this? It's not the same as micromanagement. It's like, I just want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm practicing, how do I become a part of something and feel that joy and success of doing something through the people that I'm helping succeed. And so it's fun to watch them learn and grow and go, oh, that's an awesome decision that you made, or wow, I can't believe you overcame that.
Right. And it's so interesting you say that, because I remember early on in my career, and I had a team of folks working for me, and we were our customers and our internal partners would put us all on the same email, and they'd ask a question. And if I saw the email come in and I knew the answer, I would answer, even though it was sort of technically people on my team's job to know that answer, but I also knew it. And so I thought I was just helping. Like, I was not trying to get in anybody's, but I was like, sure, I know that answer. And I got some very similar feedback, like, hey, let me, the feedback I got was, let them answer those questions. That they know the answer, let them do it. I didn't need to do it. And I was like, oh, I trust you implicitly. I knew you know the answer. I thought it was helpful.
Exactly.
And it did take some practice of like, oh, okay, no, don't be the first one. Don't let other people sort of do that. And so it's an interesting where you're just interested and want to get involved, but you're like, okay, hold on, let me practice not getting in there.
Exactly. And I think, for me, that's all about having open communication, because that doesn't happen naturally. And so what I've learned over my career also is that you just have to have real conversations with people. So I'm doing that right now a lot with my team, because it's the same thing happens. And so I will write to them personally and say, just for clarity, this, I really want you to answer this.
Yeah.
Or I'm excited for you
to
talk about this. Or I've had to just have conversations with people to say, I know the emails are coming to me to answer it, but I want you, when you're on the CC line, I want you to answer it. We can talk about what you want, if you need assistance on how to answer something, but let's do that behind the scenes, because then I need to set you up as the leader. I need to set you up as the decision maker.
Right.
And I will support what you say. And so that's really fun to start creating a dynamic on the team, is just to have those agreements. And so some of the people who are newer to larger organizations are like, this is really funny. Like, we're actually setting this up. This is how it's done. Then people have they have role clarity. They know who the decision maker is, and then then they can see that support that they're getting, from my team, including if somebody on my team says something that I don't agree with on an email string or in a meeting, I don't correct them at that time. I will go to them and talk to them and say, how do we get this back on track without it saying, just doing it in a really good way.
Right.
And so I think that's fun, because it teaches people then also, how to do that with their folks as the teams that they're managing. And so it just makes everybody feel good, and it gives clarity. And, there's a simplicity to just having a conversation, is what I'm saying.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's amazing sort of what a simple conversation sometimes can clear up or set you on the right path to begin with, and or make a correction in any kind of interaction like that, for sure. So what advice would you have for people who are interested in possibly doing a total career shift? So, people they sort of decide what they're going to major in college when they're 18. They get a finance degree, and so they're 22 or 23, and they think finance, and they get into finance. And they're like, this is killing me. This is not interesting. I want product management, or maybe I want marketing. Like, what advice would you have for people that fairly early in their careers are thinking about a career shift?
Sure. I happen to have a few people that are talking to me about that now. And some people, the advice I have for people is, again, if you know what your pillars are, then that's really easy for you to then apply those to another role. And sometimes you have to translate that for people. I was talking with a gentleman that's in my organization recently who had that same theme that you just talked about. Hey, I thought I wanted to do finance. I don't. like finance. I want to do something different.
What was I thinking?
And he said, we were having the conversation and he said, hey, my dad told me that you got to stay on the same career track in order to be successful. So I said, hey, go look at my LinkedIn profile. Let me know what do you think. And he said, wow, you've jumped around a lot. And I'm like, it might look like that, but I did not jump around like that. Just randomly, I said, of these 3 pillars, this job has one that I'm really good at. I'm really good at customer focus. So I could transfer from working in the online advertising to go work in customer operations at Expedia because I knew that. I did not know the travel industry at all. So I could not say that I knew that or the nuances of what I was going to do as an analyst when I first got hired there. But I took the one core piece. And so that gives you the confidence and kind of the foundation. And then some other people I'm talking to that, are working at another company and wanting to make that career change. It's the same thing. It's like, my advice would be don't jump into something you don't know. Sometimes you can get hired into that because, you meet a lot of people and you're just like, wow, you are smart, you're motivated, I think you'll be successful. And so you have to know also that there's something there. And so it's fun to help people transition to say, wow, those 2 things that you just told me you're good at, I see that in this job over here. And if you take that job, then your learning curve will just be half of what it is there. So that I think it's the knowing the pillars and then knowing that you have just that foundation to jump into, because a total career shift can be really jarring.
Right,
so
right.
You have to make sure that your confidence is there because when you jump into it, you're wow, this is everything I have to learn. Also, if you're going to do that, just know it's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be fun.
Right.
And so that's kind of where that practice comes in. Where am I really solid in something? I'm going to have confidence. Where are the things I'm going to practice? Where are my opportunities? So I don't know SQL, so I'm going to learn it on my own and I'm going to do it at night. Or there's so much opportunity there.
Right.
But for the people who have that solid career base, I just want them to go and explore and try something different.
Right. And try some of that and follow it. And I love that, that it might be hard, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be fun along the way. I mean, I do think probably some of my toughest roles I've had and some of the toughest projects I worked on, I look back and I'm like, wow, that was really fun. Sometimes in the moment, you don't realize it.
Exactly.
It's when you can look at it in the rearview mirror and go, okay, no, that was a great experience, right? And the people and all of that.
Yeah, so that part of it is the honesty you have to have for yourself if you're going to make a career change. And then you can just work through that. It's like, I am going to be the newest person on a team or the low man on the totem pole. I used to be the top person and now I'm going to be, one of the, the people in the tail of the organization. And if you know that, then you go into it going, oh, this is what I agreed to. I set myself up for this and I'm going to work through it. And I see people and I know for myself that I've had a lot of fun doing that. You have to catch yourself. Practice getting out of that mindset. But I think for me recently, it was the title change because as when you go into a startup, there's many people who are called the vice president in a startup. And then, I choose to go to a company where the titles are so different than even major companies here. And people are like, what? You're going to be a senior manager? And it was interesting because I had to have that thought and go, what will this look like?
Yeah.
But I landed in a job that had the scope and the scale and the complexity and the challenge and all the things that are really important to me in my pillars. And so, now people are like, I want to have what you have. You look happy in doing what you're doing. I'm like, I am. It's exciting.
That's wonderful. That's such an interesting thing about the titles because sometimes that can be a mental blocker for some folks who think, oh, I used to be a senior director. I used to be a VP. How can I go be a manager, right? And so much of that title is just hogwash, for lack of a better word, sort of depending on where you are, whether they're bloated or not bloated or...
Exactly. I think the key to me and just where I am in my life is like, no matter what someone's title is, like, are you happy? Are you motivated? Are you having fun? And those are the things that are most important to me. But, on a daily basis, there's folks that I hired first job out of college, maybe 12, 15 years ago, and now you see them be a VP of a company. You're like, good for you. Like, that's
exactly.
Awesome. I did give you some good advice back then.
You're right. I gave you your start.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, Tim, this has been fantastic. And I love the concept of, the pillars and getting really clear about those. I think that's a very meaningful way for people to think about their career journeys, as well as how do they help define what they'll be interested in for their next steps. So I want to just take us into some of the standard questions that we ask all of our guests here, because I think these are some fun ones. So, Tim, what was your first job?
My very first job was at Arby's.
Oh.
America's roast beef. Yes, sir.
I didn't even know that was their tagline.
It was a long time ago. I don't know if it is.
So, is there anything that you learned there that you would think that you still use, or anything that you still reflect back on?
Yes. I still have my Employee of the Month plaque.
From Arby's, you were the Employee of the Month.
Yes, the wood is cracked a little bit on that. I need to bring it to my current desk because I've always had it on my desk as a reminder of what I learned there. And back when I was working there, it was all customer focus. And so the thing that I still bring forward to today, and I still say it today, is when we were at Arby's, you had to take orders by listening to the customer. You could not ring it up while they were saying it. You had to take the order, listen to what they said, repeat it back to them, and then turn around and call it in, assemble it, and then come back and ring it up. And that to this day has just, I remind myself about that all the time, and I tell my team all the time, are you listening? Are you really listening to what the customer said? Now, it's different than taking an order.
Right.
But it just was the connection that you have with the customer and that focus. And even as we're talking about it, I'm right there knowing that there used to be managers watching. And so I got the award because I could take 8 customer orders at a time and remember them all. And so I've carried that forward all the time, because when you're really listening to your customer and you're sometimes if you're face to face, you can watch the body language and everything. But if you truly listen, then you're able to deliver what they want. And so it's really funny. I learned that when I was 15, and I have never forgotten that experience.
That's so important, I think, for people to think about, that listening to the customer and not immediately trying to solve it. I mean, because it'd be very easy, like, oh, you need fries. Hold on, let me ring up your fries. Let me grab those really quickly while you talk to me about what you do or do not want on your roast beef special or whatever, right? Like with cheese, without, whatever. So
don't forget the horsey sauce.
Yes. Horsey sauce.
Oh, yeah.
I had forgotten about the horsey sauce. I need to find an Arby's.
Totally. Me too.
Tim, have you listened to or read anything lately that you would recommend to others?
Yes, I am reading a lot about a company called Bulletproof. They're known really well right now for kind of bulletproof coffee, which is most people I drink it every day. I'm drinking it right now, which is coffee with some butter and coconut oil in it. And so people either love that idea or they don't. One of the things, there's books about that the author has around the food that you're putting into your body, and there's just a lot of great information there. And then he also has a book on kind of the leadership piece, where it's basically talking about how the food that you're putting in your body fuels your brain, and the different types of parts of your brain that you're using throughout the day, and how to keep those energized, so that if you're doing kind of menial or manual tasks at work, and then decision making or coaching. And so it's fascinating to me to be someone who's always been interested in how to kind of fuel the body from just I want to work out, or I want to be healthy, to actually realizing over time that it's like, wow, you can really have an impact on being present throughout the day. And so I would encourage anyone to look at those. But it's just really speaking to me, because what I think is really important when I'm looking at different authors is, I've always learned to take what works from the bits and pieces, and not always follow one thing. And what I really like about this author is that even with food or some of the other things, it's like you got to find what works for you. So that's my recommendation.
I love that.
For people.
Okay.
Try the coffee, though.
Yeah, I've never tried the bulletproof coffee. I do know people that are big fans of it, so you may have pushed me over the edge to try it. Let's see. So what would your 90-year-old self say to you?
I would say my 9-year-old self would say thank you for not stopping the dream I think when I was 9, when I look back to the things that I wanted and dreamed about, I've never lost that kind of childhood wonder,
Yeah.
if you will. I used to talk about my inner children. Now I say I have an inner millennial. Um, but there is a component of that. It's an interesting question that you said because I really keep tapping into that's where my dreams come from. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like really going deep inside and remembering those times of, wanting to go swimming or learn a sport or, just camp or, some of the
Right.
simple things in life. And so I think I really, that resonates with me to say I haven't stopped that wonder and just really wanting to continue exploring.
Right. I love that. Thank you for not stopping the dream. That's super powerful. I love that. It's kind of a great thing to think about, right? Well, Tim, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in today. If our listeners want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I would say through my LinkedIn profile. That would be the best way to contact me.
Perfect. So we'll put that link up in our show notes and on for the podcast. So thank you so much for coming on the Career Q today. It's been fantastic having you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Be sure to head on over to thecareerq.com where you can get more information, show notes, and related articles to today's topic. Also, if you like what you're hearing, head on over to iTunes, subscribe to the podcast, and make sure you leave us a rating and review. We'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks again.
The Career Q podcast is produced by Lens Group Media in the lovely Seattle, Washington. Arby's King 1, 2, 3.
Say horsey.
Sauce. Ah.